Hello everyone, Andy Schwab here with your Northern Ag TV. Well, with the recent wild weather that has hit much of Montana and beyond, Montana Stock Growers Association has posted a list of available resources. That recovery list includes contact information to the USDA's Farm Service Agency, the Montana Department of Ag Hail Program, and the Montana Disaster and Emergency Services. Those details are online as mentioned at mtbeef.org. Well, here's a positive update that is for the grain shipments heading to the West Coast ports. Last week, the Trump administration announced the potential breaching of the 4 dams on the lower Snake River have been halted. That announcement is a victory for many grain organizations as the dams are critical to transporting U.S. grains and oilseeds to global markets. Mark Seifert, President and Chief Executive Officer of the National Grain and Feed Association, said breaching those dams would have caused a ripple effect throughout the U.S. agricultural value chain and would have had a significantly negative impact on U.S. exports and the rural economy. As a matter of fact, one barge tow moves the equivalent of 140 rail cars or 538 trucks. And speaking of the Trump administration decisions, there is some uncertainty that is surrounding the foreign workers in the U.S. This comes after President Trump suggested last week that there would be a pause on immigration raids on U.S. ag businesses. However, late Monday evening, a Washington Post article stated that Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE agents, have been instructed to continue the raids. Tricia McLaughlin, the Assistant Secretary for the Department of Homeland Security, said there will be no safe space for industries who harbor violent criminals or purposely try to undermine ICE's efforts. Now, last week, the raids occurred in California farms and on a Nebraska meat processor, arresting at least 70 people. And last week, that is, before we head to the break, I spoke with St. Ange Livestock owners, that's Justin Tupper, on the kickoff of the Superior Livestock Corn Belt Classic video auction. He predicted prices to be record-setting with those early indicators showing increases of $400 to $500 per head from last year's historic prices.
There's no question that our input costs are as high as we've ever been, but there's also no question this is the highest this cattle market's ever been. And a lot of these calves that we've sold on the country page and some of these early sales, $400 to $500 a head more than they brung a year ago, and those were prices we hadn't seen before. So I think the lifeblood of a lot of these communities, Andy, that you deal with and I deal with, we can maybe get a little rejuvenation going through if we can hold this cattle market where it is, and I think it could be very exciting times this fall.
Now, when we come back from the break, we'll look at some of those day one results.
From the beginning, we've worked closely with farmers. BNSF's ties to the agricultural community go back 175 years. Together, we've innovated to make the U.S. agriculture supply chain one of the most efficient and productive in the world. Our strong relationship powers BNSF still today and helps us move the nation like no one else can. At BNSF, we move the nation for you.
Talking with someone that you know is stressed out, those are difficult things to approach, but if you're good friends with those people, reach out and say, I'm here to talk to you. We can find somewhere to get some assistance. It's hard to get involved, but at the same time, you want to just say, hey, there is help available.
For more tips in dealing with stress in agriculture or for free counseling for egg producers, visit beyondtheweather.com.
Well, there was some sweeping sell-offs in the cattle futures yesterday despite price corrections on Monday. The lower figures failed to follow that box beef prices, who once again rose to some big values. Today's trade actually could be choppy that is, as well, with the markets being closed tomorrow for the Juneteenth federal holiday, and then a cattle on feed report coming out on Friday afternoon, which could have the traders in a pullback mindset. Luckily, though, the softer board didn't seem to impact the video sales season kickoff, with Superior Livestock's Corn Belt Classic still underway today. They started the sell-off yesterday with yearling steers and spayed heifers, where prices had no issue gathering bids of $2,700 to $2,900 a head. As mentioned, today we'll see a lot of the spring calves hitting the video auction, and we'll see if that sets the pace for the year. On the sheep side of the auctions, we saw a big test at Pays on Monday for the demand of the new crop lambs. Well, it was good to very good, while demand for the old crop lamb was mostly light to moderate, with several ethnic buyers in the seats to buy those sale lambs, ewes, and goats all heading to harvest. And Monday's crop progress report said winter wheat harvest in the U.S. was 10% complete, well behind that 25% complete at this point in 2024, and 6 points also behind the 5-year average. At the same time, the overall national percentage of the crop rated good to excellent fell back to 52% of that crop. As anticipated, Montana and Idaho actually stood among the largest weekly declines, which each of them losing 10 points in that good to excellent category. For U.S. spring wheat crop, weather conditions nationally rose moderately to 57% good to excellent, up from the 53% last week. Once again, though, Montana and Idaho suffered the declines in those major growing wheat states, which was offset by an 18-point improvement in the good to excellent rating for both South and North Dakota. As a matter of fact, top producing North Dakota is sitting 66% of their crop now in that good to excellent category. Certainly an incredible turnaround from the initial reading a few weeks ago, which was among one of the lowest on records. Well, that's going to do it for our Ag TV here on Northern Ag TV. I'm Andy Schwab. Have a great rest of your day.